What do I think about actually literally dying on stage? There are precedents for it. It was Tommy Cooper.
It happened to Harry Morecambe, famously.
There's this kind of like high table of your comedy Valhalla where your Tommy Coopers and Eric Morecambe's and Sid James's sit that have died like the death of a Viking.
It's also kind of a fear that you have that you don't want that to happen in front of everyone because people might think you're doing it for a laugh.
Emergency which service?
Ambulance, please.
Ambulance service, what's the address of the emergency?
It's Attic. It's a bar on Pioneer Square in Bicester.
Tell me exactly what's happened.
Okay, well, we're hosting a comedy night, and the last act, the headliner, he's collapsed on stage.
Well, what's the patient's name?
Ian Cognito.
Sorry, who?
Ian Cognito.
Ian Cognito. Never heard of him.
He's the one you scream for, the one you cream your jeans for. He's hot and exciting, he plays guitar and sometimes sings. How the hell he does it, nobody knows. But he's a star right from his head down to his toes. He's the one you scream for, the one you cream your jeans for. He's hot and exciting, he plays guitar and sometimes sings. How the hell he does it, nobody knows. But he's a star right from his head down, a star right from his head down, a star right from his head down to his toes.
I was living in a rented council place in Hackney. We just sort of started to date, and that's old-fashioned. We just started seeing each other. It didn't take long. And I was in the theatre, and he was doing music. He really wasn't in the comedy world at all, just playing music, playing guitar in local pubs. And it was in Bath University that he really discovered his love of performing and singing, a little bit of dancing. So when I met him, the music was a big thing. And he'd already done a video of his song called Making Movies.
I hate to tell you this, but life ain't that simple at all. It's such a struggle to reach the top and then not to fall. You've got to realize it's dog-eat-dog to stay alive. Only the fittest survive.
Seeing that he could be on his own, not necessarily as part of a theatre group or with music around it. That's when he sort of transferred from just pure music through a theatre group into stand-up.
All right, I'm going to take you back to the mid-'80s. People who went to comedy clubs were like people who went to acid house jazz. They were a very specific group of people. People didn't wander into comedy clubs by mistake, OK? So they knew what they were going to get.
Anybody could get up and have a go. It was a great sort of post-punk atmosphere of experimentation and excitement, and no one really knew what they were doing.
It was the alternative comedy circuit, and it was a reaction to traditional kind of Bernard Manning type comedy.
You have much more of a connection to that British tradition of variety, than what it's become.
A comedy club has changed a lot since the 90s. For a start, smoke. They're not smoky rooms anymore. I used to smoke just to join in. The punters weren't kicked out if they were rowdy or if they were heckling.
And then throw in a lot of really weird acts, like someone that used to melt a block of ice.
There were a male and female double act, and one of them used to play the nose flute.
I once went to the Tunnel Club, and Harry Enfield was on, and he got booed off. And a guy went on after him and told a joke for 10 minutes in Serbo-Croat, and he got 3 encores.
Randolph the Remarkable, who was a great big guy whose act was doing a belly flop dive into a washing up bowl.
Chris Lynham, he would finish his act by putting a live firework up his arse and setting fire to it. Obviously burnt himself quite a few times.
There was a paper terror. There was a guy who pretended to kill rabbits.
It was just a bit more broken, and people displaying their brokenness without trying to fix it. It was just brilliant.
It was a very different game than it is now.
I mean, if you've got to remember the people that were around then, Jack Dee, Joe Brand, Jeff Green, Sean Locke, Harry Hill, Bill Bailey, Lee Evans. The list goes on, and he was up there with them.
He had a fairly anarchic, dare I say, libertarian outlook on life, and this was right up his street.
When you start stand-up, there's the headliners who headline all the big gigs, and he was one of them, that whenever you did a gig, he'd be headlining.
Welcome to the stage, the one, the only, the indisputable, Mr. Ian Cognito!
Ladies and gentlemen, there's an old saying in show business, leave them wanting more. You've been great. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Well, I'd heard about him. I mean, his reputation definitely preceded him. I'd been warned that he was extraordinary on stage and fearless, and that he had a fiery temper off stage. And there were always stories about altercations with promoters and other comedians.
I first kind of properly got to know Cogs doing the tour support for him in 2005. He didn't really used to have publicity shots back then, like proper ones. There were things like drawings of him, and there was that weird thing where he's doing that and opening his mouth, and there's like a little miniature version of him, so you didn't know what he was going to look like either, so there was this kind of mystique about the man.
He was the first comic I met that already I'd heard so many stories about that I was probably apprehensive about meeting him.
I met Ian Cognito first time at a Mirth Control gig out west, and I was pretty new, and he scared the shit out of me.
It's me, your second act. Too risky to open, not good enough to close.
And you watch other people and you go, oh, that's what you do, and I see that's what people are doing. And then next thing you meet Ian Cognito, and he breaks every rule.
And I'd only just started, and I'd seen, you know, a lot of stand-ups going out, normal stuff. And then Cogs come out with a shopping trolley, and he had a dress on. And I thought, this geezer's a lunatic. And he was really aggressive. So, but he really made me laugh. He was like naturally funny, he was a bit edgy. And I would imagine that would have been at his best. That was sort of early 90s.
Watching him on stage and seeing this utter freedom and not caring. Yeah, come at me. And he had that, and I wanted that.
All with your mobiles, eh? What's that all about? There's 100,000 fucking people here. Is that not enough for you to talk to? No, you've got to ring up your mate. The only reason you should choose your fucking mobile is if you're ODing. Then don't ring your mum, she don't want to fucking know.
I remember the first time I met him, because I didn't know I was going to meet him. I had a gig in Guildford, and I went in the backstage, and I sat down, and he started talking to me, and I can't remember what he was saying, but I remember while he was talking to me, he went over to a sink in the corner of the room and got his dick out and started pissing in the sink while talking to me. And I remember at that point thinking to myself, I think this is probably Ian Cognito.
I was very trepidatious about meeting him, although I was also very excited about watching him. He said, yeah, I've heard about you. I'd be interested to see what you're like. And of course that put the fear of God into me, because you want to do well in front of other comedians. And fortunately I had a good gig. I mean, thankfully I didn't have to follow him, because I don't think I would have ever been able to follow him. And he came up afterwards and said, yeah, you're all right, you are. Yeah, you're good, you're gonna do well. And I felt like I'd sort of been touched by the hand of God.
In 1994, I said to him, I would like to manage him. And he said, okay, let's come over to the house and let's talk about it. So I went over to where he used to live, which was in Walthamstow, East London. And I went there with the view to talk about a plan. How are we going to take this forward? He said, the thing is, Clarfield, I don't think this is going to work. And I said, why? And he said, because I want to fuck you in the arse. And I said, I think you're right, this is not going to work. And then he said, well, hang on a minute, hang on. If I just get over this, that I'm not going to fuck you in the arse, will you still manage me? And I said, yes. When I look back on it, I think that was just the Cogs initiation. How was I going to react?
Just want to say, if I've offended anybody out there, grow up.
In fact, the jokes were so good, they were just sort of stepping stones along the way for him being him.
Never French kiss a leper, never try to shove a turd back up her arse with a spatula. Never trust an electrician with no eyebrows. Now that's just common sense. They're laughing behind the bar. They won't be laughing by fucking Saturday when they've heard it 3 fucking times. I'll give it all that. It's all scripted, everyone.
As a new act, all I'd be thinking about all day was that gig and how it was going to go. And then you met him and he still had that same passion for it. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's why I do this. Incredible to never lose that the whole time you do it.
You can relax, son. Back to the cop jokes now.
It wasn't like any other comedian's act. I mean, he brought out a lute, for God's sake. And he would berate the audience. And he had such rage in him, but he was always funny.
You look at me as this godlike figure, you think you can fucking do. You think I have the answers, well, I don't. I'm as bad as the rest of you. Selfish, always buying shit I don't need, shit I can't even use. Do you know, I can't even play, whatever the fuck that
is. You soon kind of got to realise that actually he was a bit of a loose cannon and that if something didn't go his way, run for the hills.
Don't fucking film me, you cheeky cunt. Put it away.
There was something beautiful about his rants. I can think of the sweat dripping off him and I can see him there in his bandana.
Estrogen in the water supply. Yes, you. We invent a pill so that we can fuck you without having to worry about it. And then as soon as our backs are turned, you are pissing in the water supply. Don't think we don't fucking know.
He was in a tradition of aggressive, countercultural, angry male comics. I mean, but he always took the piss out of his anger. That was the thing. He wasn't, you know, he would always undercut himself. He'd always pull the rug out for himself. He always had that sense of play.
Stand-up comedy was a weapon to him. It wasn't a nice thing. It wasn't a gift that he was giving the audience. It was a weapon that he was using to make them see the error of their ways.
I mean, here we are, 2012. We're still here, still fucked up. 147 armed conflicts are going on in the world as I shout at you. And you're worried about me cracking a few fucking silly little jokes.
If the audience were going for it, he would really relish that and storm it. And if the audience weren't going for it, he might be confrontational with them.
It's all right, darling. You ain't gonna like all of it.
He'd find a way of making it seem like he had at least sort of been shot down in flames as opposed to just, you know, struggling to silence. That would never happen.
Cogs was brave because he went on and went, I'm going to say something that's going to make you hate me, but then I'm going to say something that's going to make you laugh 2 seconds later. That's actually proper brave because that's bringing on an attack.
Now, it's cold out there. You lot wrap up warm, and all I'd ask you is spare an extra little thought for the homeless people when it's cold out there, and it's fucking cold. A little extra thought for the homeless people, right? Fucking easy to trip over when they're covered in snow, I'll tell you that.
I've got 2 tiny little clubs, and he's played them a couple of times, and I'd be so excited about him coming to stay, and he always nailed it, but not without, at some point during his set, just tearing it right down.
As a performer, watching another performer struggle, usually it's not fun, but if Cogs was going down in flames on stage, it was like, fucking hell, everybody get round, have a look at this, because if he decided he was going down, and he was taking every cunt with him.
I'd book him in to come and do my gig, and he'd just literally stand and shout in somebody's face, and, you know, some people would think, well, that's not what I've paid for, I've come to have a laugh, not you know, be shouted at and, like, sort of cowering in a corner.
Because you're getting to my age, sonny boy, you fuck! Mock me with your hair!
But what he gave the audience when he was on song, like all great comedians, he gave them an experience.
I said, do you fancy another baby? She went, are you fucking, are you... You mad? I hate you! We had a microphone in the bedroom in there.
In the early noughties, live comedy was huge back then, and people were doing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gigs a night. And that always perplexed Ian, because he wanted to just put all his focus into one gig and make that really special.
It didn't matter if the mic wasn't working because he would ignore it. He would just sort of boom his voice out to, you know, 100, 200 people. Or if the sight lines weren't right, he'd stand on a table or if the lights were pointing in the wrong position, he'd just walk around amongst the audience.
There's 2,000 people in. If he'd have turned round and said, right, come on, we're marching on Downing Street now, 2,000 people would have followed him, without a doubt.
What I remember is him standing there, often in women's clothing. That doesn't really matter. But him standing there, maybe on a table.
I'm the sixth bloke on this bill, and I knew it was happening. I could see them, more blokey coming over the fucking wall. Here they come, blokey, no birds there. So we had a little chat, a little fucking drew straws.
That there was like sort of chaos and that, but underneath it all, he was very much kind of like a man of poetry and theatre.
There was a young fellow from Tring whose poems lack one vital element. We tried all the time to make the words fit, and the last line was usually too long, didn't scan properly anyway.
It could go in any direction, he could say anything to anyone at any point. But also, when I saw him, he had this warmth with the audience, like he did with the comics, so there wasn't like a thing of like, you're all in the crosshairs.
What do you drive? A Volvo, Swedish. Got nothing funny to say about that. Well done. Fuck me up now!
Is to be trusted by an audience, to be taken somewhere where you're taken to the precipice of what might offend you. But that's the joke, of course, is that actually there's going to be a reversal.
Meanwhile, down in South Africa, that great man, that Saint Mandela, could be dying soon. I hate to think what's going to happen in that country. You've only got to look at Zimbabwe. Look at Zimbabwe. Fucked. Mugabe is shitting on his own people over there, and you've got to ask yourself this question. How can you trust that Mugabe when his name backwards reads Zibagum?
The way that it played with an audience's expectations, the sort of stuff that he did, was cleverer than it might be given credit for.
I'll tell you, don't lend anybody from the third world any money, you'll never fucking see it again, okay? Greedy cunts, they are. Always got their hands out for something.
He came from a position going, I'm the worst person imaginable, but I've got your number.
I put him in a category of a comedian's comedian. Someone who is so good at his craft that other comedians, when we got a night off, we'd go to watch someone. If we heard that Cogs was playing somewhere local to us, we'd go and watch him perform. Because half I was laughing at what his delivery was, but the other half was laughing at the reaction of the crowd.
It has that effect where you instantly want to do a gig that night, you know. I mean, every time I was on a bill with him, he was the compere, and it didn't matter how I felt that day. As soon as he goes on stage and starts talking to them and improvising, I was like, oh, I want to do a gig now.
He became this kind of figure, this kind of Gandalf figure that a lot of young comics were attracted to because he was like, you know, the last vestige of the Wild West and the kind of wild man.
He aggrandized himself and inflated his contribution to comedy. And the surprise actually was, oh no, it turns out after he died, he really did have that impact. So he was onto something.
There have been, throughout history, lots of brilliant but flawed artists. Beethoven, Van Gogh. Ian was very much in that tradition.
Was he sexist, was he racist, or was he just a cunt? If he was ever going to be sexist, it was done for a reason. It was done to get a rise out of somebody.
You women giving it all this, you men, you couldn't stand the pain of childbirth. Well, yes, we fucking can. Yes, we could. We got broken noses, we got tattoos, we play rugby, we're fucking hard. Here, you doubt me, here's a man having a baby, right? Well, baby. Stings a bit.
I never heard him be racist. I never seen that, never encountered that.
And then they go, but you ain't got any black friends, have you? I go, no, but then I ain't got any white friends, have I?
Sorry, you're asking me if Cognito was racist? Not for 1 second. He could be equally hateful towards everyone.
Was he just a cunt? Yeah, that was Ian, that was Cogs. Yeah, of course he was a cunt.
In fact, I lost it the other day in a car park. One of those handicapped people trying to use one of our spaces. You ain't having it!
that first. Never fucking look down here, will you? Hey. I don't see your outline down on that floor. You know you don't. That's more the outline of someone who's fucked off. Not nice, I grant you, but if you let them get away with it, they will be in our toilets.
The problem with saying is somebody's material racist or sexist is you have to judge it in the context of the time. The whole point of comedy is you go as close to the line as you can get without going over. But if you change the position of the line retrospectively, then it's bound to be somebody who could look at his act and say it was sexist or racist. They're bound to be able to.
Heads up all the racists in the audience tonight! It's not as popular as it used to be, is it?
Some things I know, some things I'll never know.
Never have a great big spliff and then go out shopping for shirts in the sales.
The one about when they say come to a cinema near you.
How the fucking hell do they know where you are then, eh?
The one about driving into an empty car park.
I'll never know why it is when you drive into an empty car park, you never know where the fuck to park.
Those are ingrained in your head and go, no, they ain't going anywhere. They're there for life.
You can't forget what a jokesmith he was, that he was very much a traditional gag man.
Took a girl home, went anal on me on the first night.
Put all my CDs into alphabetical order.
I'm half Italian, half Irish. How fucked up is that?
I used to have stewed pizza for dinner, and I'll tell you what.
I'm never doing that vodka and Red Bull again.
I woke up doing press-ups in the gutter.
I was in bed with my wife. She said, where's that man? Where's that man that used to make love to me around the house? He used to make love to me in every room in the house. What happened to that man?
I said I kicked the fucker out. He wasn't doing his washing up. Why should I stay for that?
Spider-Man was bitten by a radioactive spider.
And then become like a spider. Well, I must have been bitten by a radioactive cunt.
Got me some of that extra virgin olive oil the other day. Took it home.
Someone's only fucked.
Which is like such Route 1 joke.
Billy Connolly gave up drinking because he said it made him boring.
Wish I had that problem. I've never come to in a police cell and found myself there because I've been fucking boring.
My street, it's a great street. We've got Hindus and Muslims and Jews and Catholics, and we all get on great.
Because we all gang up on the Eskimos down the bottom of the fucking garden.
And then what he'd do is go, any Eskies in?
Any Eskies in tonight? Any Eskies in? They're fucking wankers, they are.
Any Eskies? And it was the utter conviction with which he said it. He used to make me laugh every night.
I had mistakenly thought that one of his lines was just like a sort of a little comparing technique. It was the one where he goes up to a woman in the front row and says,
Opal fruits or Starburst, darling, what do you say?
bath or shower,
Stones or the Beatles?
dogs or cats,
Cadbury's or Galaxy?
Marathon or Snickers.
Up the box or up the shitter?
He got me fucking slung out of like one venue in Chippenham. We're doing the nail trick. He got it right through the projection screen. Could have happily fucking strangled him at the time, but again, look back and laugh.
He walked onto the stage and he had this magnificent fedora hat on and he was carrying a hammer. And he went to the back of the room and just banged into the wall. And he realised he'd banged a nail into the wall. And you thought, what's he doing? And then he just took off his hat and hung it on the nail. And you were just like, oh, brilliant. And he went to the alpha male of the front row and he just went, 2 things you need to know about me. One is I don't give a shit. And the other is I've got a hammer.
It absolutely established him. Okay, this is who I am. I'm going to be dangerous and I'm likely to be violent.
And at the end of the set, big laugh, and he goes, takes his hammer out and pulls it off the wall, removes half the wall. Hence, probably being banned from most clubs, because if he did that to my club, I'd be pretty pissed off.
And I did actually ask him once, I said, you know, do you ever get in trouble for hammering the nail in the wall? He said, I always ask him first. And then he got his guitar case out, and his guitar case and a little pouch, you know, for your spare strings, he actually had a tubic of polyfill. And he would actually fill the hole in after if there was any problem. Sorry, Cog, but it's true.
It's a fact and you fucking know it. And you know why? Because of you. Yes, you.
Let's be honest, it could be exhausting. We all knew that. I think Sally Ann Hayward put it best when she said, like, we've all got an exhausting mental Cognito story.
And I thought, God, just one of those stories would exhaust me, but Cogs was in every single one.
We took him to the train station on Sunday and we had an hour to kill. So we had a pint. So we took him to the train station on Monday and we had an hour to kill. So we had a pint. Then we took him to the train station on Tuesday.
And Cogs just downs his drink and slings the glass at it.
And then he ended up dancing on a balcony, but he had no pants on, so it was not a particularly nice sight.
And when we landed, the South African police boarded the plane and took him away. So he was arrested.
And he made her cry, and he was like, Susan, you're an old bird, you tell her. I was like, you got yourself into this mess, you get yourself out of this mess. I'm not having anything to do with it.
I just heard otherworldly yelps and groans coming from inside a car wash.
I opened the door and he's halfway down the corridor with this tub full of piss, right? And he's got a key card in his mouth and he's going, fucking hell!
He lost his balance and they both fell over together.
And he's projectile vomiting out of the passenger window.
And then Cogs came back in the fire exit, slammed the door and went, that's got rid of those cunts.
So I said, when did you get him on the train? He went, fucking Thursday, man.
He started saying, where's Nigel Clarfield? And we told him how we meant to know. It's the middle of the night.
And he just crashed into a tree. He looked at me and he went, how'd you do that fucking thing? That fucking thing. I went, what do you mean? He went, stop.
60% gypsy, 30% pirate, and about 22% nut job, you know. I think I got the maths right there.
The main ingredients you need to be a comic, and this is all you need, is really, really low self-esteem with a massive ego.
I think with Ian, he was so sensitive and so vulnerable. I think he formed his own skin, as it were, his own barrier to the world by using jokes and alcohol.
He just, like, was a quite sensitive bloke. He had sort of, he admitted himself, kind of mental health difficulties, as do I. And it just, sometimes it had a bad effect on him and just made him a bit paranoid and defensive and just made him think that people had it in for him and that kind of thing. A lot of it was him being upset rather than trying to upset people himself.
There was a fragility about him as well. You know, there was a lot of bravado there and conviction in him, but that usually does hide a soft centre, doesn't it?
I said to him once, quite a nice bloke, aren't you, Cogs? And he'd go, yeah, don't fucking let that get out.
Because I ain't nice. I've got 2 kids, 9 and 11, which are odd names, I grant you, but you've got to call them something.
Yeah, this is where he lived, where we live for a lot of it as well. The boat's just down that way. He had like bindweed like coming in the windows, and actually at one time he just had a mattress. No, do you remember he had the fucking plastic? Yeah. Because it leaked so much, he just had tarpaulin over a mattress. He didn't put the plastic. He didn't put the plastic over the outside. He was sleeping in this kind of like Bedouin tent made of like crime scene plastic. It was weird. Yeah, it was that. We all said to him, Dad, come on, you have to sort this out. I mean, I like it like that. Does the job. I'm only sleeping in there. So there's a lay-by up on the bypass. I think people were always quite alarmed and probably also quite, well, that makes sense about it when they had to sort of drop him off on this completely nondescript lay-by with absolutely seemingly nothing around. No buildings. Yeah, just drop him off there and then he'd sort of waddle off. Yeah. With a guitar, probably. Yeah, always with a guitar. And then like up and over and down, disappearing into the woodlands till he next appeared. You are going to kind of romanticise it and fantasise it a little bit because it fits so well with what he was. Almost like the troll under the bridge, because that's essentially what it is. You know, he goes down the little path under the bridge to parts unknown that nobody knows, and then lives there. The way they describe it is a lot more sort of, he sort of wanders off and disappears into like melts through the bushes, and then that's him gone. And you see it the next time you see him is in some, I don't know, comedy club in Leicester. But yeah, it's completely different for us because we lived here.
After he died, it became clear that so many different people thought that he was quite a special friend of theirs. I did. But the more people that described the feeling they felt they had with him and the connection they felt they had with him, the more I realised it wasn't unique. And that's not to say that he was disingenuous. He was just really good at making people feel that that he was their friend.
He would speak exactly the same tone to everybody he spoke to. I think maybe that's why he made people feel special, because it's quite a relief when someone's not trying to be somebody else.
He didn't care whether you'd been going for 20 years or it was your first gig. He wanted to know about you and he'd give you advice, some of which probably not welcome, may have been to stop.
He accepted you as a comic just like he was, which I think is rare in a comic who's been going as long as he had at the time, to see newer acts and be that gracious and welcoming to them.
If he saw something in you or he liked a joke, he was very supportive and very complimentary, and it meant a hell of a lot when he said, that bit you got, that bit about the toothpaste, I mean, I've seen it coming, but that's a good bit. So he'd always make it clear that he was like top dog.
As things went on for him and as people around him started to progress, there were times he would be bitter about that and feel that he'd been stolen from and taken from.
So if you talked about a new act he'd seen, he'd be like, yeah, I've heard they've seen Cognito.
I've been in the dressing room and somebody's come on who's not done well and he's told them they were shit. I think, fucking, all right, you're not expecting that. Because normally what happens, people go, oh, they're a bit of a tough crowd, aren't they? Oh, you know, you go, that was shit, wasn't it? And you go, fucking hell, mate, Jesus Christ, he's probably crying inside.
Get used to it! Get fucking used to it!
I mean, he was larger than life on stage. Off stage, he was quite an unassuming guy. I did a gig with him once. I think I was comparing, and I introduced Ian Cognito, and there was a very, very posh Kensington woman in the front row, and Cogs zeroed in on her straight away. But he was incredibly funny, brilliantly funny that night, and he was slagging her off. It's so rude to her. After the gig, he gets off stage, and we're sitting in the backstage area. This woman walked in steaming. I mean, I thought she was going to hit him. And she goes up to him and she goes, do you work here? And he goes, yeah. And she goes, that last act, he was disgusting. And he said, well, madam, that's outrageous. That is outrageous. We're going to talk to the booker and we'll make sure that act never comes here again. And she goes, okay, thank you. And she storms out. And I thought to myself, wow, how is she not seen? But the reason she's not seen is because he looked like he was 6'5" on stage. But the truth is he was a little 5'4" Italian-Irish guy. And it was such a difference that people couldn't tell.
I found out his actual name when the policeman was trying to identify who he was on the night.
I knew his name was Paul, but it just felt weird, like calling your fucking dad by his first name, isn't it?
I have some vague recollection that he talked to me about, you know, about being a play on incognito. I don't want to be known, I want to be out there but not known.
I only knew what his name was after he died and I read it in the paper. Never knew, why would you want to know?
He used to be quite guarded about that, about his name. He used to hate the idea of people knowing that was his actual name.
He once told me that incognito was just an anagram of gin and tonic, apparently.
If he was really pissing me off, I would call him Paul. But if he wasn't, I'd call him Cogs, because Cogs was sort of like a fond name, you know. So obviously I called him Paul a fair bit.
Because he came from that early alternative comedy scene where almost all comics had a stage name. And you know, the subsequent 25 years, hardly anyone does. But they all had funny names, didn't they, back in the 80s? So Ian Cognito, right? It's a gag.
I found out his name because on the VRN form, you have to write down the information of the person who's buying the car. And I said, oh, Cogs, I need your name and your address for this. And he went, who are you, the fucking tax man? I said, no, I need your real name and your address. So he said, oh, I'll write it. So he wrote down Paul Barbieri, P.O. Box 1, Bristol.
I will just say it's nice to be back. I had to take a couple of years out of the comedy game because I was worried that the late nights, the adulation, the drug taking, the drinking, let's not deny it, the sex. I was worried it was turning me into a bit of a cunt. So I took a couple of years off to get to know myself, and it turns out I am a bit of a cunt, so fuck it. Might as well earn a few quid, eh?
Whoever it was wrote about him that he was a sheep in wolf's clothing. Absolutely nailed it. Paul was very warm and very accepting, and he made you feel good about what you were doing. And he was really fulsome in his praise for people, and he was a real fan of people, not just comedians, but he was a fan of his friends. He enjoyed his friends very much. Ian Cognito was a cunt.
Okay, I'm here today with the wonderful, legendary Ian Cognito. How are you doing, Ian?
I'm all right, up and bothered at the moment, but other than that, yeah, good.
Yeah,
good.
so you're in Edinburgh for the first time in a long time, doing your own show, yeah?
15 years.
15
since
years.
I'm doing my own show. I mean, I've been up there on and off other than that, but I mean, you know, yeah.
And what's your show about this year?
It's called Trouble with Comedy. It's about how the fact that after 28 years, nobody knows who the fuck I am.
Yeah, which is
well, you,
I've never seen you, but I know that I've heard about you.
They know me in the business, but I'm in trouble getting across to the general public, but I'm sure this is going to rocket my
Why do you think that is?
Because I've never been on telly.
I'm Ian Cognito. I do this for a living. Performing live in smoky clubs. Sure, beats working, but there's one thing that annoys me. When I meet a person, it's just a matter of time before they ask this question. They say, have you been on telly? I've never been on telly. You must be pretty shitty if you've never been on telly.
Back in the 90s, if you went on telly, it was seen as completely selling out. Stand-up was about the alternative to telly. Now it is, you know, rightly or wrongly, it's a part of telly, isn't it? That's what stand-up is. But he was still that, no, you don't go on telly. Stand-up, it should be in a room above a pub. It should be dirty and grotty. And he was still like that right up to the end.
But he was never distracted by trying to impress TV people. In fact, he wore it almost as a badge of honour that he didn't work in television. He didn't want to compromise.
Jack D, teetotaler, does an advert for John Smith's. Peter Kay, teetotaler, does an advert for John Smith's. Johnny Vegas, I've never seen that fat cunt have a cup of tea in his fucking life.
He believed that if you were going to do comedy, and you were going to do comedy on TV, it had to be who you were. Why would you change? And so very quickly, on all the offers that he got, they came up against a brick wall.
I think the reason why he wasn't on TV is cowardice from the industry. That's what it was.
And also, the other side of it is television didn't really want him because he was very anarchic, he was unpredictable, and sometimes there was carnage at the performances.
Once you stop being compliant with TV people and they realise they can't manipulate you, they're not interested in you because they're not interested in the sort of out-of-control wildness. They're interested in kind of controlled, we want you to do this for our show.
But I've had the reviews. He's exciting, he's unpredictable, he's funny. I had that once. I had one in The Guardian that said Ian Cognito is dangerously explosive, which was all very well, but nobody turned up at a fucking Belfast gig.
In the late 90s, 2000s, this new breed of comedians started turning up who were very professional, suited and booted, had material that was not necessarily controversial, but was very TV friendly, and they were on a kind of path to some sort of success, whether it's getting their own series on Radio 4 or something like that. And I think he really thought people like that were wankers.
Because here I am, 28 years in the business, never been on fucking telly, never won an award. No awards for me. Imagine how I felt when I went into the Chef and Brewer pub the other day, picked up the menu, it said, try one of our award-winning sausages. I thought, oh, that's fucking great. I can't get fuck all, but there's a fucking sausage out there.
Could you imagine at the time, at the peak of his powers, particularly the early 90s, when there's nobody better than him in the country as a live performer, and there are fucking a lot weaker acts getting all over TV? That would fucking piss you off, wouldn't it?
Don't care, never been on telly, fuck it. Never been on telly, never... I ain't lucky, that's my problem. Oh, yeah, there was Lloyd, he's been on the fucking telly, me, never. Never been on telly, never fucking once been on telly.
I think he actually did want to be on telly, but actually he wanted to hate the people that were on telly and not identify with them.
I could say that. Hollywood don't want me. No, Hollywood won't have me. Well, Bob, if you went over and auditioned and learned to act... No, I'm not playing their game. They don't want me. I don't care.
Yeah. But when we started off in alternative comedy, I didn't know it was all going to go quite as telly as it has done. Right. But now...
And do you kind of rail against that type of comedy?
I suppose I do a bit, yeah, really. You know, and then maybe it's my own fault because I need something to kick against. So if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be the comedian I am, really.
You can't just blame the sensibilities of programme makers. I mean, what we say live on stage compared to what we're allowed to say on television is extraordinary. What we protect the viewing public from, that actually then if they go and see it in a live circumstances is perfectly acceptable. The gulf between those two things is extraordinary.
You know you're getting old, right? When the President of the United States is younger than you. Mind you know you're getting old when the President of the United States is blacker than you. Now let's analyse that. You think I didn't know that would get a little bit of a... Well, it ain't even fucking racist, is it? It's what we call in the comedy business a fact. And you can't boo a fact.
He's one of the comics who reminds you how important and how much better live comedy is a lot of the time. You've got the jeopardy that it could go wrong and that the comic could have a bad gig.
It's all right, darling. I'm a professional.
Through the years, doing telecomedy, I have witnessed a massive snobbery towards the circuit that Cogs ruled. And in fact, circuit comic being used as a dismissive term about someone. And I'm like, damn it, they're the foot soldiers. We are the foot soldiers of the entertainment industry.
So there was always talk all the time that Cognito could break through. But what happened was, through his anarchic ways, he would always make sure that he did everything possible not to achieve the best he could. So yes, he could do it on stage, but then all the antics off stage would ensure that it never went forward anymore.
He had a real self-destruct button.
When things were going great, if there was that button in front of him, he'd bang it, just to see what happened. Why did Cognito blow it? I think he hated the whole idea of being famous. I think he liked to see himself as a sort of wandering troubadour.
I actually cycled to Bristol Temple Meads, got train to Bristol Airport, flew up to Newcastle, got the metro into Newcastle, got the fucking train to Wylam, and then a bus, £1 fucking 95, up the hill. I'm staying in a farmhouse up the road, room number 1, have a wash, see me back there.
If you'd given him like a shiny floor, lights and sound studio, I don't know how he would have made sense in that world, because he doesn't. There's some footage of him at like a benefit gig, and it's great, but it's not quite right.
When I did it about a month ago, and I'll tell you what my 6 options were, right? Option number 1, if it came up on the dice, I was going to have a nice cup of Earl Grey tea and a cold cup, oh, fucking hell. Look at that, eh? Because they're all back there, they've all done all this before, and they're all going, no, not nervous at all. I'm going, fucking arseholes!
The last time I had a good chat with him, we were standing at one of these festivals, behind one of these tents. I hate them gigs anyway. Ian, I said, that was really good what you just done now. I said, I know you've probably heard it a million times. I said, but you know what, mate? I said, you could have cracked it, and you probably still can. And you know what he said to me? Have a guess what, Rick? He went, I don't want to crack it. And I got what he meant. I got what he meant. And what he meant is, he didn't want to play their game.
If option number 6 came up on the dice, I was going to agree to do that gig in Islington that's full of TV stars where you're not even on the fucking poster and you're on second.
This is when I first really got to know him, because he says, I don't know which room I was in, but I've pissed in somebody's room and it wasn't mine.
I guess I had a bit too much to drink last night. I'm fucked. There's a banging in my head and the room is spinning around and round.
And I go off to Singapore to see a friend of mine. And I come back, and Cogs has been up north doing shows. I come back and he went, oh, Mark, got a bit of trouble. He always understated what had happened, quite sheepish. And then I got 7 summonses through the post, all in my name.
I didn't say that, oh no, didn't tell you all my crazy schemes. Oh no, I didn't say.
But they say once you admit you're an alcoholic, you've got the problem beat. I'm an alcoholic, cheers.
There's a certain drink, maybe 3 in or 2 in, where you feel good. And that comes with all addictions. And I think when Ian drunk when he was on stage, he was trying to get that good moment to work with. And of course, like all addicts, you can't stop.
That's my problem. Like a drink, don't I? Like a drink.
Incognito was a self-confessed alcoholic, so we don't need to judge him.
And the first pint of Guinness, he'd be charming, funny, complimentary, debonair, and then the fourth pint, look out, you know, he would turn, and he would turn like that.
You could be having a perfectly normal chat with him and he'd just turn on you for no reason.
My relationship with Cogs came to an end after he headbutted me one night. He was totally out of it. He didn't even remember that he did it. But for me personally, I just thought, this has now gone the wrong way. You can't manage somebody that headbutts you.
It usually involved red wine or whiskey at about 1 a.m.
Out of the blue, he goes, what's all this fucking cake shit you do then?
But the next day it would have, I'm sorry, darling, I was a bit of a cunt last night, wasn't I? So I'll get you a breakfast.
Next morning, I get woken up on my phone and it's the funniest Cogs. He just goes, sorry, boy, I'll buy you breakfast.
You could never fall out with him for longer than about 3 or 4 hours.
£100 a week on booze! And if you multiply that by the 52 weeks that are in the year, I don't need to tell you lot, that is £5,200 a year on booze. And when you say it like that, don't sound fucking bad, does it?
That we didn't see him all the time, and sometimes we would come over and he'd be like, no, I can't go down there.
Yeah.
Got a bit pissed the other night. He would always say, like, just don't shit on your doorstep.
Yeah.
So if you'd come down here, maybe have a few too many, like, offend someone, and that's your neighbour, isn't it? Or just like, he just didn't like people being so that familiar with him. Even his, like, neighbours, he didn't want to, like, sort of know who or what he was about.
I think Paul's relationship with the booze totally came out of his need to relax in company. I think he cultivated a persona, which obviously became Ian Cognito, that could deal with people, and that persona needed drink. And that happened something like 5-6 years into our relationship. I started noticing this. And yeah, it was pretty uncomfortable.
Eventually I did see a doctor who told me straight, he said, if you carry on drinking, you're going to die. I said, why is that then? He said, because that's my fucking point.
But I think it was all down to the fact he was trying to numb the pain of life, really, like it is with most people who have trouble with drink. He didn't have trouble with it, he was very good at it.
Myself and Pierre Hollins went to visit him on his boat. Cogs was drinking can after can, and I counted them. It was 18 cans of beer. And then he got started on the red wine about 4:30 in the morning.
So I got into the doctors, I said I can't sleep at night, I'm paranoid, I can't keep my food down and I can't get an erection. I fucking can, it's a joke. He said to me, you drink too much. I said, how can you tell? He said, this is a chip shop, you drunk cunt.
We used to do the Glee Club in Birmingham, and they would put you up at quite a nice hotel. And then one day Cogs threw a telly out the window. And then after that, we weren't allowed to stay in that nice hotel anymore. We had to stay in like a B&B. And so everyone was really pissed off with him because he'd ruined that little sort of nice hotel kind of treat that you had when you went up there to work.
Oh, you know the one about the TV? He threw the TV out the window at the hotel. I mean, that's the ultimate rock and roll thing to do. But Cogs, he's had a good weekend, he's earned a few quid. He's in his hotel room and he just rings up reception. Excuse me, these televisions, how much are they? And the guy's going, I don't know, they're about 180 quid. Is there a problem with it? Not yet. Puts the phone down, thinks, yeah, I can do that. Launches the TV out of the window, because he'd always wanted to do it. I did ask him, did you look down first? He went, nah, you can't do that, darling. That's cheating. Do you think Keith Moon had done that? He would never have done that and damaged somebody's property without having the money to cover it. That would never occur to him. He just wanted to throw a TV out of the window because he'd never done it.
I was big of him to replace the telly. He didn't pay for us all to go in a nice hotel, though. Sorry, I don't really bear any grudge against him.
Because I am banned from more clubs than any other comedian in this country. Yeah. I am banned from more clubs than any other comedian. And you know what happens to you when you're banned from as many clubs as I am? Yeah, fucking heading on the fucking wall. That's what happens to you on a fucking Tuesday night. Tuesday fucking night. Standing on a fucking table with your bollocks out. That's what fucking happens.
Cogs has been the so-called most banned comedian on the circuit. I think that was only partially true. There were so many venues that wanted him. The only times that people would ban him, he was totally unruly at the gig, and him being unruly would be that he sometimes turned up pissed, and that's just a fact. And other times he would turn up where he was just so on the money, and you would just go, wow, that's incredible. I asked him many times to try and dry out, and he would often say, yeah. And then he would say, I'm not fucking doing it. And he used to say, this is what people expect from me. I'm Ian Cognito. They expect this. And I said, they don't. No one cares. Personally, I think that his addiction to alcohol, he would say it's because he's Ian Cognito. He has to be as he has to be, and he needed the drink. I think he could have been Ian Cognito without the drink.
For years, my mum and dad got on well, and then they fucking met. Both drunks. Pair of drunks, to be quite honest with you. My dad, fucking hell. Chianti, Frascati, Valpolicella. And at the end of the day, you could get pissed on my dad's breath. He'd kiss me goodnight, I'd try and start a fight, throw up a curry, go out like a light. I was only 8 years old.
Now, the big thing I want to say on this film, you have to separate the person from the alcoholic, because any addict are two people. I say two people, one of them's a person, the other one's like the devil. You know, I understand him being an addict. I was a food addict at the time. I think we're all addicts of some sort, especially comedians.
Who I wouldn't pick a fight with on the comedy circuit, definitely one. Ricky Grover is one. Nobody's going to start a fight with Ricky Grover. You'd have to be fucking stupid to start a fight with Ricky Grover, wouldn't you?
Ricky Grover is a lovely bloke and got a big heart, but I wouldn't cross him.
When I was born, people used to say, do you know, you look just like your mum. Now she's had her nose broken, and all go, do you know, you look just like your son, because mine's been broken about 5 times now. I can't think why.
Our first social meeting was in Edinburgh all them years ago. I've heard all different versions of what happened myself, but I'll tell you straight now what happened. I was standing in the Gilded Balloon up the bar, and Ian Cognito's coming, and he's boozed up. And he's not falling all over the place, but he's really angry. And he had really piercing eyes, really sort of piercing blue eyes. And he was like looking round and as he's come up to the bar, I thought, oh, this is my chance to meet him, get to know him, see how you're at, you know. And I thought he'd like my little bit of background, boxing and coming out the East End and I went, hello Ian, all right mate? And he went, you're a fat cunt. And the atmosphere changed. And I'm standing there, and every now and then he's looking at me, but he's looking at me with fire in his eyes. So he's looking at me like he's going to hit me. And he keeps looking round at me. Now, where I'm from, if someone looks at you like that, they normally follow up. So I'm watching his hands. I'm watching, he's got a glass in his hands. Is he going to try and glass me? Is he going? And I thought, I better diffuse the situation.
Ricky's like an old-fashioned East End gentleman. If he's got a problem with you, he'll give you a warning. He'll tell you to behave. You fucking behave yourself, or you get a slap. He's one of them guys, you know. So you've got a chance to rein it in if you've been a bit naughty.
So I said, I'm going to give you a chance now. I said, did you mean that, what you said? And he said, oh yeah, your wife's a fat cunt as well. As I looked at him, I see him sort of go like that, like he was going to do something. I don't know if he was going to go for an headbutt or what he was going to do. And I clipped him with a little left hook. His feet went right up in the air. I thought, fuck, I've killed him.
And me and Rona Cameron ran over and got hold of him and pulled him up. And he was smashed anyway. He went, fuck it, I'm going home. And off he went. I thought he meant going back to the flat that he was staying in, but what he meant was going home.
The general sort of chat on the circuit was he sort of asked for that, you know, because Ricky's actually a lovely guy and kind of a big teddy bear in some ways, and he wouldn't do anything like that apart from in certain circumstances, and one of them would be if someone insulted his wife.
And I just said to him, look, in Edinburgh, it's all about how you react to success and how you react to failure. Admittedly, it hasn't gone well for you so far because being knocked out on the Monday night, you're going home on the Tuesday and the festival doesn't start till the Wednesday.
So I phoned him up. I said, Ian, I think you need to meet me this morning. So he said on the other end of the phone, I think you've done enough, didn't you? And I went, what? He said, I can't really draw. I think you've done enough. So I said, oh no, I said, I haven't done enough. I said, it's only just begun. I said, meet me outside the assembly rooms. So he's turned up and his jaw was black. His whole jaw was black. I thought, thank God I never hit him hard. I definitely would have killed him. So we start going for a walk, walking along, and I said, Ian, look, I said, you've dug me out. And from what I'm hearing from other people, the reason is that your show ain't going great and you want a way out. And you use me as a scapegoat. And I think it's a liberty. He said, what it is, Rick, he said, I can't do comedy unless I have a drink. And then when I have a drink, I lose it. So I said, well, don't do comedy then. Me and him ended up cuddling in the middle of one of the streets, both crying.
There was two choices. You can either go and stand in the middle of track 2 at Waverley Station, or you can insult Ricky's wife. Either way, you're going to hospital and you can't do your show.
That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. But that kills us, kills us.
And I said to him, I'll see you soon. And he went, no, you won't. Right, but I'd heard he'd said that to quite a few people.
He was one of the big headliners at any gig. To see him slowly getting older.
And you know you're getting old when you look at the wheels on a suitcase and go, maybe they ain't such a fucking bad idea.
The comedy circuit changing a bit and it becoming about emails, him not getting quite as many gigs. Seeing him comparing gigs, I remember just thinking, he shouldn't be comparing. He's Cognito, he should be headlining this.
As time went on and as he got older, and I worked with him a lot, you know, you'd sense something was changing and that people were no longer offended in the way that they used to be, in a kind of fun, sporty way. They were just, they just didn't trust him as a performer. You know, not always, but sometimes, some audiences, you could see them thinking, well, I don't think I'm comfortable with this.
I mean, look at you young people, fuck's sake, I'm old enough to be your dad. In fact, I am your fucking dad. I'm sorry to tell you that, darling, but your mother wasn't easy to live with and you were a right little cunt when you were younger.
As comedy became a bit more of a business, I think people thought, listen, I love him and he's a great guy and he's great to hang about with, but I could get closed down, somebody could get hurt, somebody could get offended, who knows? And they decided not to book him. I think in the end, a lot of the bookings he got were from comics who used to run clubs.
Promoters understand or thought that, you know, younger audiences, the audiences that they were getting, don't want to see an old man doing comedy, saying the kind of things that he did say.
I think the doctor had also found out that there were some serious things wrong with his heart and so on and so forth. So he gave up drinking, and it was unbelievable how it happened, because 1 minute he's a drinker, the next minute he stops drinking, and he never drank again. Ever.
And I think it did worry him that if he didn't drink, he wouldn't be as good a comic. But once he stopped, if anything, I think he picked back up from where he'd left off. I think it did actually make him a better comic.
And this is a guy who has drunk all his life. And what a different man. He was kinder, he listened, he was humble, he was reflective. So when he was drinking, his emotions were really either anger or crying or depressed, but his emotions calmed down. 3 or 4 weeks after he'd given up the drinking, it was a really, really lovely moment, and I'll never forget it. So we went for a walk this time, and he said to me, I don't understand. I'm just so fucking happy. I've never felt this happy. He was sorting himself out, and he was happy. And it was an amazing thing when he said that. And that was about 1.5 years before he died.
People talk a lot of crap about timing, but the only timing that you need to know, it's not knowing how and when to crack a punchline. It's knowing when to stay and when to go. When they start to throw things, soft and squidgy red things, time to go.
I'm going to see the doctor, he ain't got a clue. Some sort of tropical disease as far as he's concerned. All I know is after he'd finished examining me, he set fire to his hands. I went, oh, bollocks. This is serious. I said, you got any advice for me? He went, yeah, don't buy any long life milk and don't fill up your freezer. Next!
I heard that he'd come upstairs and he'd had a bit of a dizzy spell, so he had to have a lie down. So I thought he might have had like cold or flu or something like that. I texted him saying, if you're not good, you can go on first, do shorter and just get off. And you know, Cognito being the way he was, he weren't going to have that, was he? He's got a headline, so he'd go, no, I'll be fine. I'll close, I'll be fine. I just remember the first act coming off and him saying to me, he was good, wasn't he? So always, right to the end, complimentary and nice to other acts. I said to him, if you want to do a bit less, you know, just do a little bit less if you're not feeling good. And he goes, how long do I need to do? I said, well, do about 30. And he went, well, 40 feels better. Doesn't matter if I overrun, does it? I was worried for me, whether the gig would be good. I was worried for him, is he going to be all right and have a nice gig? And like, you know, when you see someone walk on stage and within seconds you think, fuck, they're in the palm of his hand already. I introduced him as your final act or second act of the evening, something like that. And his opening line was, I'm a fucking headliner, and started slagging me off. And he was doing all the things you want him to do, all the brilliant performance that he does. He was grabbing someone by the head and shouting in their ear, walking off stage. He did have a stool on the stage, like a high stool with a short back on it. And he was doing a wonderful thing of sort of sitting down every now and again and just with his legs crossed and just doing bits to the side, just throwaway lines to the side and that. And I thought, it's brilliant. Probably about 5 minutes in, he said to the audience, imagine if I fucking die here in front of you lot. They loved him immediately. You could sense, you know, when you sense, oh, they love it. He could say anything now. I think he'd done about 20. Something like that. I just remember him sitting down on the stool, just touching his shirt like that. And I remember thinking that he'd remembered a bit of material, remembered a bit that he'd missed and he was going to go back to it. But I remember him going like that and just looking up like this, but very, very slowly then putting his arms out and leant back in the stool. And it looked very theatrical. This might sound over dramatic, but it really looked like he was sort of lapping up his last round of applause in a way. And for ages, he was like this on the stool. For a while, like people were laughing because it felt like it's definitely part of a joke. And slowly it died down to the point people were going, and then people were looking at me like, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't want to walk on stage in the middle of somebody else's set. That's something you don't do. And it got to the point where, yeah, someone had to do something. So I walked on stage with one of the audience members, and to the point where I put my hand on his arm, I still fully expected him to go boo. And but as soon as I looked at him, looked at his face, I knew it was serious. There was 2 A&E nurses in the audience who immediately started trying to resuscitate him. The people who couldn't do anything filed out as soon as they could to make space so the people who could help could help. Everyone in that audience did everything they could, and the ambulance arrived. I do remember the policeman picked up his bag and he's unpacking it to try and find out his name, and he pulls out a bag of hash like that looked like a small green pillow, and he just went, let's not concentrate on that now. And then he said to me, do you know the gentleman's name? And I realised I don't know his actual name, so I got to say to a policeman, Ian Cognito.
He'd have loved it if there was a headliner on after him. That's what that's what he'd have fucking loved. If there was another act on after him, somebody been paid a bit more fucking money. Well, you're better than me, you can't, are you? Follow this.
After we learned it wasn't a heart attack, it was a ruptured aorta, and that means the heart fills full of blood, and you kind of, in a way, you kind of faint, and it's the most peaceful way, heart-wise, you can go, apparently. And it did look weirdly peaceful. It wasn't a grab your chest and groan in agony. He put his arms out like he was lapping up applause and slowly slipped away in front of an audience. An audience, needs to be said, who absolutely loved him.
And I know that your last sense to go is your hearing. And I think we've all taken comfort from the fact that the last thing he would have been aware of was laughter in his ears, which is just such a poetic way to go, isn't it?
And who knew it'd be global news the next day.
I might have thrown a television out a hotel window, crashed cars, broke the law, taken drugs when I was low. Okay, I've never been the very model of sobriety. I've been in drunken fights, which I lost with alarming frequency, but I don't kill the spiders who visit me at night. I was not the man who advertised a pile of shite. I've never been a rabbi or a mullah or a priest. Not me.
And then he was everywhere, and I think that would have been very strange to him because that's not something he ever courted.
I mean, I said this a few times. A mate of mine died over that time, and he died on stage, and people, like everyone I said, oh, that guy, I read about that guy. It was, everybody knew about this.
Oh, he'd have loved that. He was in Hello magazine. When it's these things, sometimes the first person you want to tell about something and hear their reaction is the person that you can't tell and you can't hear the reaction of. People say it's what Cogs would have wanted. He never would have done that to, knowingly done that to Pat or Andrew. He'd be absolutely mortified.
Just fucking cried in the street.
Yeah, it was a...
All I wanted to do was to be in a room with loads of other comics. I just wanted to be with comics because they were the only ones that would get, you know, how important this man was.
I think we all collectively thought, do you know what? If he wanted to go any way, that would be the way.
Ian's home was on the stage. You know, if you'd scripted the legend of Ian Cognito, that's how you would have written it.
He'd obviously put his body through a lot. I spent a few weekends with him, and it took me weeks to recover.
It was quite amazing that he actually lasted this long when I think about all the amount of alcohol and drugs that he took in the 90s.
Then to go to the wake and seeing all the people there, all the old faces, people I hadn't seen for years, hundreds and hundreds of comics, and everyone going up and telling stories about him.
I said, people will say it's what you would have wanted, and he related to me, well, for the record, Pat, he said, what I would have wanted is to die in a Bangkok brothel face down. And a bag full of cocaine, but not on the money these cunts are giving me this evening.
Go and sing your song. Go and tell your tale. 'Cause this world will knock you down like a hammer and a nail.
It's because you knew whatever he was saying, there was something about his performance and his style and the light in his eyes that he knew he didn't mean it. And ultimately, he was the person with low status, he was the person with frustration, he was inviting you to find him ridiculous.
The part of me doing this is I feel in a room full of comedians, it should be known, his last gig, he ripped the fucking arse off. That needs to be said.
So how he will be remembered, I think, is probably in 10 years' time, primarily through a vehicle like this. How many greats must there have been throughout history that just never got recorded and we'll never know about these amazing performers? They only live in people's minds and people's memories. And Ian, because he was never on telly, is out of that tradition.
If he was well known, it would have taken something away from him. He's supposed to be just one of them comedians you saw in a gig once and you tell your mate, oh fuck, we saw this comedian last night. He was meant for a pint of Guinness over someone.
He was the most purest representation of like outlaw comedy, and it kind of went, an era went with him.
And when he was on it, just as good a performer as I've ever seen, ever.
If you've never been to a live comedy club this weekend, go to one. Okay, go to a live comedy club for the first time, because Cogs won't be there, but if you're very lucky, you might just catch just a sniff, just a passing vision of that kind of anarchy that only live comedy can do.
But I think he belongs to a tradition of performers that go back like centuries. I can imagine him in a troupe of players touring inns in the sort of 15th century, or I can imagine him in like a mead hall in the 11th century. I can just see that tradition of performance in so many different settings in him. And that's something that I think we've lost a bit in stand-up.
I think he was undoubtedly an inspiration to a lot of comedians. There were many comics who you could have seen over the years who you know that they've seen him, you know that they've been inspired by him as well. When you were on a bill with him and when you were chatting to him, you really felt like you'd made a good decision in life.
People won't forget him. As some sort of epitaph, that's not a bad one, is it? People will talk about Cogs for years to come.
On the surface, he'd just kind of go, oh, fuck it, forget about me, it doesn't matter, I don't matter. But then the little part of him that kind of really wanted to be loved and wanted success and wanted all the things that he professed to hate. I think he would be genuinely touched that we love him so much.
Yeah, he was a legend, and this is a bit of a legacy for him, and he'd love that.
I think Ian would be quite pleased that everybody saw him in this light. He'll probably also think it's a load of old bollocks.
I think Paul will be sitting thinking, I've inconvenienced quite a lot of comics who work with me, but they've had to be dragged out when they've had better things to do and talk about me on some documentary. And yes, that will be his legacy. Once again, Ian, I'm here doing something for no fucking money, all because of you.
It feels like his whole life was like a setup and his death was the punchline to a joke. That in his own head, he was this comedy rock star legend, and now he is.
The man who shocked audiences, he gave them one last shock, didn't he?
The fact that he died on stage, it adds to the myth, doesn't it? But it is just a myth. A lot nicer if we weren't making this film, right?
One day, the world might be a better place, and we will love each other, and we will share things together, and it won't be a something for nothing world, or everything for some. It will be everything for all of us, shared out equally. One day, we just might live in a world where there is nothing to be gained from making people look small and taking the piss out of them. And when that day happens, I am fucked.